Well, joining us today to fill us in on the key discussions being held at the Congress in Sopot is Professor Krzysztof Zięba from the Department of Entrepreneurship and Business Law at Gdańsk University of Technology. Professor, thanks very much for joining us this evening. Now, a crisis...
Good evening. My pleasure.
Good evening. A crisis of confidence, one of the main themes there. How confident are you in the health of our financial systems around the world?
You mean our financial system, like Polish or European?
Okay, well let's start with Poland. Let's start with the U.S. and Europe, and then we'll get to Poland.
Okay, so I would say that I'm much more confident when it comes to the U.S. and the European Union rather than Poland, actually. Obviously, we live in the time of huge challenges, and that always kind of cripples stability. You cannot have stable things in unstable environment, and well, the environment is highly unstable. But when it comes to Polish economy, I have some growing concerns, which I may share, of course.
Really, I'd be fascinated to know what you're thinking, because, I mean, the data coming out says that the Polish zloty is doing great, that inflation is coming down. What's your take on this?
Yeah, I mean, certainly the exchange rate is not a concern right now. It's not a problem. Not problematic at all. When you think of inflation, well, I would be worried. I would be worried. That is true that inflation is slowing down, but we need to remember that we are slowing down from very high levels. Very high levels. So,
that's right.
You know, it's just, you know, I'm speaking to you from Gdynia, so I'm like 10, 12 kilometers from this Congress, right? And if I don't want to go there, and yet I'm in a car heading towards Sopot, it's a small consolation that the speed of my journey goes down from 14 kilometers per hour to 12 kilometers per hour, because the car takes me to Sopot where I don't want to be. What I'm trying to say is simply people, I mean general public, can quite often be charmed by saying, okay, our inflation slows down, but let us remember, a decrease in inflation cannot be mistaken for decrease in prices. Prices are growing. They are simply growing at a slower pace. So, you know, that's hardly a consolation.
And why? Why is that? Why is this happening? Why is this happening? Is it solely because of all the money printing that went on during the coronavirus, or are there other reasons for this incredibly high inflation?
There are quite a few factors, obviously. COVID-19 pandemic is one of them. But that was something that hit all the economies, right, to a greater or a smaller extent. But COVID-19 greatly is actually finished. I mean, we do not have a very significant consequences right now. Certainly, the war that is going on just outside our borders has something to do with inflation. We could see that in the past. But nowadays, there's base inflation, you know, when you exclude food, when you exclude the energy, the prices of energy, this core inflation is quite high and it's not slowing down. You know, the time is pretty specific in Poland. I mean, we have elections coming, and that usually trigger some decisions when it comes to fiscal policy. And this fiscal policy is usually less contractionary than it should be. I mean, it does not target inflation that much. That normally forces central banks to take a very strong position against inflation, and Polish central bank does not. I mean, they are not very offensive.
So you think that they could be raising interest rates even more? Is that your opinion?
Well, my opinion is interest rates in Poland were increased too little and too late. So this is again something in the past. We should have done it earlier, just to prevent prices from growing so quickly. Right? Now it's the question whether we should increase those interest rates or keep them. Probably, well, I would be for increasing them, right? Compare the current interest rate, the reference interest rate, and the current inflation. Well, we still have negative interest rates in Poland, and they are highly negative. Right? So, since the central bank cannot count on full cooperation with the government for political reasons, and that's obvious, any government does not want to cut down government spendings just before elections, because voters, well, of course, they do not appreciate that. All right, I mean, I would, but not everyone would appreciate that, obviously, right? So this is my major concern here.
All right, so let's look 2 years into the future. Obviously, you're not very optimistic about what's going to happen, but give us as sort of an idea of what you see.
Well, the inflation would probably slow down even more. Right? The economic situation should be better, but, well, we all need to remember what Niels Bohr used to say, that forecasting is very difficult, especially when it regards the future. Right? We do not know the future. We do not control it. So we may play some games right now. I'm guessing. But let me tell you, all people that produce some forecasts, and I have some forecasts just developed by the experts of the Congress that you mentioned in the material, and they produce forecasts for next 3 years. I'm telling you, they are guessing. Obviously, they do have some
educated
models.
Guesses.
These are educated guesses, you know, but 3 years ago, no one expected war in Ukraine, right? 4 or 5 years ago, no one expected COVID pandemic. We knew it was possible. It was possible to have some, you know, huge disease spreading worldwide. Yeah, we thought that this kind of scenario is possible. We thought, yeah, it is possible that maybe a war somewhere, like, for instance, China trying to capture Taiwan. Probably we didn't expect Russia trying to capture power in Ukraine, right? That was pretty unlikely several years ago, but we are guessing, right? So these are expectations, but the reality may surprise us in both ways. I mean, positively and negatively.
Sure,
all is possible.
Sure, all is possible, and a lot will depend also on the election. Although, in terms of government spending, I don't think the election will change much in that way either, will it?
Well, we already know that, for instance, we will give more money to families with kids. 800 plus it's done. I mean, it will happen. Doesn't matter if it would happen right now, as the opposition tried to force the government to do it now, or would it be later, like in January? This money will create additional inflationary impulse. I mean, there are some obvious arguments in favor for making this money bigger, because the original value of 500 plus has already been kind of eaten by inflation to a great extent.
That's right, 500 plus adjusted for inflation.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it. So, yeah, but this will be additional money, and remember, this is money that will be spent by most of the families that would benefit from this program, because these are people that need this money really to satisfy the needs of the children, right? So this money will not be saved; it will be spent, and it will increase demand, and will. Higher demand will create favorable conditions for inflation to grow, or at least not to slow down as quickly as we would like it to do.
Yep, unfortunately, we're in it for the long run for now, unfortunately. But thanks very much for joining us and sharing your insights with us, sir. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And now it's a time for a quick fire round, starting with Qatar's impressive budget surplus.